Peace and blessings to you, my friends. I am Kai. We begin our journey today with a question that may seem strange. What if healing the swelling in your ankles has almost nothing to do with your ankles at all? In our modern world, we are taught to be brilliant mechanics of our own bodies. When a warning light comes and a pain, a discomfort, a swelling, we are told to find the broken part and fix it. We see the symptom as the enemy, a nuisance to be silenced so we can get on with our busy lives. If our ankles are swollen, we look for a pill to drain the fluid. If our head aches, we take something to block the pain. We have become experts at asking our bodies to be quiet. But the traditions that have guided my 60 years of life teach a different way, a quieter, more patient way. They teach that the body does not speak to us in anger or malfunction. It speaks in whispers, and it is our most sacred task to learn how to listen. That feeling of heaviness in your legs, that gentle pitting of the skin when you press it. This is not a broken part. It is a message delivered with the utmost love and urgency. It is a whisper. Think of all the whispers you may have heard from your body over the years. That subtle feeling of fatigue in the afternoon that you pushed through with coffee. That quiet indigestion after a meal that you silenced with an antacid. That fleeting sense of anxiety in your chest that you distracted yourself from with work or entertainment. These are all whispers, gentle nudges, loving reminders from your inner intelligence that something in your life, in your inner ecosystem, is out of harmony. When we ignore these whispers, when we repeatedly ask them to be quiet, the body has no choice but to speak a little louder. The whisper becomes a persistent murmur. The murmur, if still ignored, eventually becomes a shout. A shout is a symptom. We can no longer ignore what modern medicine often calls a diagnosis. The swelling you are feeling is a very loud whisper on the verge of becoming a shout. It is your body, in its infinite wisdom, saying, "My dear friend, I need you to please listen now." I am reminded of a man I once knew, a very successful man who built a vast empire of businesses. He had everything the world told him he should want. But he was deeply unhappy, deeply disconnected from himself. His days were a whirlwind of meetings and flights, his mind a constant storm of numbers and projections. His body whispered to him. For years, with insomnia, with heartburn, with a constant humming tension in his shoulders, he silenced it all. Then his legs and ankles began to swell. They became so swollen he could no longer fit into his expensive, handcrafted shoes. He could no longer sit comfortably on the long flights his business demanded. His body had finally found a whisper loud enough to make him stop. He came to me looking for a quick fix, an herb, a technique, but instead we talked. And for the first time in years, he began to listen not to me, but to himself. He realized the swelling was not from a failure of his veins, but from a life that had no room for joy, no space for stillness, no outlet for the immense pressure he was under. His life force, his ki, was stagnant, and his body was simply reflecting. That reality, the healing did not begin when he took a diuretic. It began when he took a walk in the woods without his phone. This is what I mean when I speak of your inner ecosystem. Your body is not a car with separate, replaceable parts. It is a garden. When the leaves of a plant turn yellow, you do not fix the problem by painting the leaves green. You understand the yellow leaves are a message. They are a whisper from the plant telling you to look deeper, to check the soil, the water, the sunlight. The swelling in your ankles is your yellow leaf. It is an invitation to tend to the soil of your entire being, your emotional health, your stress levels, your spiritual nourishment, your daily joys and sorrows. So, before we speak of vitamins, minerals, and pumps, I invite you to begin with the first, most essential step, the practice of listening. For just 5 minutes tomorrow morning, before the noise of the day rushes in, find a quiet place to sit. Close your eyes, take a deep, gentle breath, and ask your body with genuine curiosity this simple question: what do you have to tell me today? Do not search for a specific answer. Simply listen. Listen to the sensations. Listen to the feelings. The goal is not to get a reply in words, but to re-establish a relationship built on trust and respect. This is the foundation upon which all true healing is built. Once we have learned how to listen, we can then begin to understand what our body is saying bis to you on your journey inward. Asterisk, asterisk, welcome back, my friends. In our last conversation, we opened ourselves to a profound idea that our body's symptoms are not enemies to be defeated, but whispers to be heard. We began the practice of listening today. We take the next step. We begin to translate the message. When your body speaks to you through the language of swelling and fluid retention, one of the first words it wants you to understand is imbalance. And this imbalance begins in a place so small we cannot see it, yet so fundamental that all life depends on it, the sacred space of our individual cells. I want you to imagine, for a moment, that each cell in your body is a tiny, living house, a home full of life, energy, and intelligence. Outside this home is the great ocean of your body, the fluid that flows between all the cells. But inside, there needs to be a perfect, pristine environment, a freshwater lake that nourishes the life within. To maintain this perfect home, on the doorway of every single cell, there stands a guardian, a tireless, vigilant gatekeeper. In modern science, this guardian is called the Sodium-Potassium pump. It is not a cold, unfeeling machine. Think of it as a wise and ancient custodian whose only duty is to maintain harmony. For every 2 bits of precious potassium it allows into the cellular home, it diligently escorts 3 bits of disruptive sodium out. This constant rhythmic exchange does something miraculous. It creates a tiny electrical spark, a charge that is the very signature of life. This cellular spark powers your every heartbeat, your every thought, your every movement. It is the hum of life itself, and its other crucial duty. It maintains the perfect balance of water inside your cellular home. Too much sodium inside a cell acts like a magnet for water, drawing it in relentlessly. Without the gatekeeper constantly escorting sodium out, the cell would flood, swell, and ultimately perish. The sheer scale of this operation is something that fills me with awe for the body's wisdom. There are not thousands or even millions of these gatekeepers. There are billions upon billions of them, working in perfect concert across the 37 trillion cells that make up your being. Imagine the energy this requires. Nearly a third of all the food you consume, a third of the caloric energy you take in each day, is dedicated solely to fueling these silent, invisible guardians. More than building muscle, more than moving your body, this quiet act of maintaining balance is one of the most energy-demanding tasks of your existence. So, what does this have to do with the swelling in your ankles? I remember one spring at the monastery, after a week of heavy rain, we found the stone floor of our cellar was damp and cold. The old sump pump that lived in the corner had given out. The water, with nowhere else to go, began to pool, compromising the very foundation of the building. This is the picture of edema. When these cellular gatekeepers falter, when they become overwhelmed and run out of energy, they can no longer escort the sodium out. The delicate balance is lost. The fluid that should be flowing freely, that should be inside the cells or moving through your vessels, now begins to pool in the spaces between your cells. It is an internal flood. The foundation of your tissues becomes waterlogged and heavy, but please hear this with compassion for your body. These guardians are not designed to fail. They do not grow weak out of laziness or old age. They are overwhelmed. They are exhausted. They fail when their environment becomes polluted, when their energy supply is choked off, or when the very fluid they are trying to manage becomes thick, hostile, and sticky. For today, I invite you to simply hold this image in your mind. The image of trillions of tiny, silent guardians working tirelessly on your behalf. Feel a sense of gratitude for their work. By understanding their struggle, by appreciating the immense energy they require, we move beyond simply hearing the whisper of swelling. We are beginning to understand the words. We are learning the language of our own bodies. In our next talk, we will explore the great mystery of what causes these powerful guardians to falter. We will investigate the stickiness that brings their sacred work to a halt. Peace to you. Welcome back. In our last talk, we stood in awe of the trillions of silent guardians, the cellular pumps that maintain the sacred balance of our inner world. We were left with a profound question. What could possibly cause these tireless workers to become so overwhelmed that they begin to fail? What is the nature of the stickiness that brings their vital work to a halt? Today, we must investigate this question with honesty and compassion. The answer, my friends, is one of the great paradoxes of our time. The source of this stickiness often comes from something that we associate with energy, with pleasure, and with sweetness. It is an excess of sugar. Please understand, this is not a story about good and evil. In the natural world, a little sweetness from a piece of fruit is a gift, a blessing of quick energy. But in our modern world, we are surrounded by a deluge, like a gentle summer rain that can become a devastating flood. The sweetness that should be a small gift has, for many, become a torrent that overwhelms the body's landscape to understand. What happens? I want you to hold the image of your bloodstream in your mind. It is meant to be a swift, pristine, life-giving river. Floating along this river are your magnificent red blood cells, which I like to think of as beautiful, vibrant red boats. Their sacred duty is to carry oxygen, the very breath of life, to every shore, every remote village in the vast kingdom of your body. Now, imagine that someone begins to pour thick golden honey into this clear, flowing river. Not just a drop, but jar after jar. The river, once so swift, begins to slow down. It becomes viscous, heavy, and sluggish. The little red boats can no longer travel freely. This is a picture of what happens when there is too much sugar in your blood. But it gets deeper. This excess sugar, this honey, has a profoundly sticky nature. It doesn't just cloud the water, it begins to latch onto everything it touches. It permanently bonds to the sides of your beautiful red boats, the proteins that make up your red blood cells. It is like a coat of hardening caramel that cannot be washed off. This damaging and permanent process has a name: Glycation. Many of you may have heard your doctors speak of a test called the A1C. This can be a number that brings us fear or confusion, but let us see it for what it is. An A1C test is simply a historical record of your river. It is a way of measuring exactly how much honey has become permanently stuck to your red blood cells. because your red blood cells live for about 3 months. The test gives a beautiful, accurate picture of how sticky your river has been over that period. It is a story of your recent past. Why is this stickiness so concerning? A protein coated in this hard sugar shell becomes stiff and dysfunctional. The once pliable red boats, able to bend and squeeze into the tiniest of blood vessels to deliver their life-giving oxygen, become brittle and rigid. They can no longer reach the distant shores of your kingdom, the delicate nerves and capillaries in your feet and ankles. This creates a traffic jam on a massive scale. The sticky boats begin to clump together, slowing the river's flow to a crawl. And when the flow slows, especially in the lower parts of your body where gravity makes the return journey most difficult, the fluid begins to pool. Furthermore, this sticky honey doesn't just damage the boats, it also damages the riverbanks themselves, the delicate inner lining of your arteries. It makes them inflamed and leaky, allowing even more fluid to escape into your tissues. Now think of our cellular gatekeepers from our last talk. What becomes of them in this hostile environment? They are being starved of the oxygen they're delivering. Boats can no longer bring them. The very fluid they are trying to manage is now as thick as molasses. They are being asked to bail out of flood with a sticky, heavy sludge. It is an impossible, exhausting task. This is how they fail. This is not a story meant to invoke blame or guilt. It is a story of cause and effect, offered in the spirit of wisdom. For when we understand the nature of this sticky river, we gain the profound power to choose what we allow to flow into it. We gain the power to provide our bodies with the clean, clear, life-giving waters they were designed for. With this awareness, let us prepare to look at the other consequences this stagnation brings. Peace to you. Asterisk, asterisk, greetings again, my friends. In our last meeting, we stood together on the banks of our inner river and witnessed a sorrowful transformation. We saw how an excess of sweetness could turn its clear, swift current into a slow, sticky, honeyed sludge. This process, which we now know as glycation, is the beginning of a story. Today, we must follow that struggling river to its final destinations and observe, with great compassion, the consequences of this profound stagnation. I want you to imagine the vast circulatory system within you as the intricate network of roads in a great and peaceful kingdom. The large arteries are the major highways, bustling with traffic. But the vessels that reach your hands and feet, your fingers and toes, are like tiny, single-lane country roads leading to the most remote and delicate villages in your entire kingdom. It is these remote villages that are the first to suffer when the flow is disrupted. The sticky, clumped blood cells we spoke of, the honey-coated boats, cannot navigate these narrow country lanes. They are too stiff, too clumsy. They begin to get stuck, creating microscopic traffic jams. Think of this: vital supply trucks, laden with the warmth, the oxygen, and the nutrients from the heart of the kingdom, are now unable to reach these faraway villages. What happens to a village that is cut off from its supply line? The first thing its inhabitants notice is a deep and persistent coldness. The warmth from the kingdom's core simply isn't arriving. Have you ever felt that? A coldness in your feet or hands that has no relationship to the temperature of the room. This is often the first sign that the supply trucks are struggling to get through the traffic. The village grows pale, its vibrant, healthy color fading, as the life-giving red boats become scarce. And of course, because the flow of traffic has slowed to a crawl, the river itself begins to overflow its banks just outside the village. The fluid, unable to move forward, has nowhere to go. It pools in the village square, in the surrounding fields. This is the swelling. This is the edema we feel in our ankles and feet. It is the undeniable physical evidence of a profound traffic jam deep within your system. But there is another, even more delicate consequence. In these remote villages live the kingdom's most sensitive citizens, the nerves. The nerves are the messengers. Their sacred task is to feel the world, the texture of the earth beneath your feet, the warmth of a blanket, the gentle touch of a loved one, and send these vital reports back to the central palace, your brain. These sensitive messengers, however, are completely dependent on the supply trucks. They need a constant flow of oxygen and nutrients to do their work. When the sticky traffic jams become chronic, the messengers begin to starve. In their desperation, they start to send garbled, confused signals back to the palace. This is the tingling you may feel, the sensation of pins and needles. It is not a random event. It is the sound of your starving nerves crying out for help. If their cries are not answered, if the supply lines are not cleared, their cries can turn into shouts of pain. They may begin sending signals of burning or sharp shooting pains, even when nothing is touching the skin. And finally, if the starvation is allowed to continue, the messengers, in their utter exhaustion, fall silent. This silence is the numbness. The village goes quiet. It loses its ability to feel, its connection to the rest of the kingdom. This is the condition known as peripheral neuropathy. Please see this with clarity and not with fear. The coldness, the swelling, the tingling, the pain, the numbness, they are not separate problems to be managed. They are chapters in a single story. The story of a river that has lost its flow. The story of a kingdom whose furthest villages are being neglected. To know this story is to be empowered. It is to understand the root of the problem. A traffic jam can be cleared. A river can be cleaned. We now understand the what. We have seen the consequences. In our next conversation, we will finally turn the corner from the problem to the solution. We will begin to explore the how. We will discover the first master key that can help us restore the river and nourish our kingdom once more. Peace be with you until then. Welcome, my dear friends. In our conversations, we have walked a difficult path together. We have stood on the banks of a sticky, stagnant river. We have visited the faraway villages of our inner kingdom and witnessed their suffering from the cold and the silence of numbness. It is a heavy knowledge to hold. But I promised you that we would turn a corner, that we would walk out of the shadow of the problem and into the warm light of the solution today. We take that first, decisive step. We begin to speak not of damage, but of restoration. And every great restoration, every locked door that must be opened, begins with a single master key. This key I speak of is not a complex pharmaceutical born in a laboratory. It is a humble, profound, and elegant gift from nature, essential for all life. In the language of modern science, it is known as thiamine, but I have always found it more beautiful to call it by its other name, vitamin B1, the first, the foundational spark. Why do I call it a master key? Because its power is not limited to opening just one door. It unlocks a series of chambers on the path to wellness. It opens the door to clean energy. It opens the door to cellular protection. And it opens the door that allows our sticky, stagnant river to once again flow with clarity and purpose. Let us first understand its primary role. We have spoken at length about how an excess of sugar becomes a torrent of sticky honey in our bloodstream. How does a healthy body prevent this catastrophe? It does so with the help of a wise and efficient manager whose sole job is to oversee every bit of carbohydrate that enters our system. Vitamin B1 is this brilliant manager. When you eat a piece of fruit or a vegetable, B1 steps in and masterfully converts the natural sugars into pure, clean energy, the very energy called ATP that powers our trillions of cellular gatekeepers. When B1 is abundant, sugar is not a toxic threat. It is simply fuel for the dance of life. But this is where our modern diet presents a great challenge. Imagine this wise manager must be paid for its work. For every molecule of sugar it processes, a molecule of vitamin B1 is used up. A natural, whole food, like a sweet potato, contains both the carbohydrate and the vitamin B1 needed to process it. It is a perfect, self-contained system. Now, think of the highly refined carbohydrates that have become so common. The white breads, the pastas, the pastries, the sugary sodas. These foods are like a demanding employer who shows up with a mountain of work but refuses to pay. They demand a colossal amount of processing from the manager, B1, but they arrive in the body having been stripped of their own natural B1. They are thieves. So what does your body do? In its infinite wisdom, it tries to cope. It pays the manager from its own precious savings account. It begins to pull vitamin B1 from its reserves from your liver, your muscles, your brain, your heart, and, most critically, from the protective sheath around your nerves. Day after day, the thieves of refined carbohydrates arrive, and day after day, your body drains its savings to deal with them, until one day, the savings are gone. You are now in a state of deficiency. When this happens, a devastating, vicious cycle begins. Without the manager, the unprocessed sugar runs rampant, and the sticky glycation process accelerates. The river gets stickier. The cellular pumps, now starved of clean energy, fail more rapidly. The swelling worsens. This poor circulation then makes it even harder for any remaining B1 to reach the starving nerves, which in turn cry out with tingling and pain. The problem begins to feed itself. But this vitamin's role is even more beautiful. It is not just a manager, it is a protector. B1 is a powerful antioxidant that stands as a shield, actively guarding your delicate proteins from being damaged by sugar. It physically helps to keep the sugar and the protein from forming that permanent, damaging bond. So when you are deficient, you have not only lost your energy manager, you have also lost your most valiant shield. To understand this is not to despair, it is to feel hope, because a key that is lost can be found. A savings account that is empty can be replenished. We now understand the profound importance of this master key. We hold it in our hand, but a key, no matter how powerful, rarely acts alone. In our next conversation, we will discover the two trusted pillars that stand on either side of the door, supporting the frame and making the work of this master key possible. Until then, be well. Asterisk, asterisk, a warm welcome to you all. In our last conversation, we discovered a profound source of hope. We found the master key to begin unlocking the door to wellness, the humble, yet powerful, vitamin B1. It is the key that helps manage our energy and shields our very cells from damage. But any wise builder or observer of ancient structures like this one will tell you a truth. A door or a key does not exist in isolation. Its power is made possible by the strength of the frame that holds it. Today, we get to know the two unwavering pillars that support this entire structure of healing. They are not vitamins. They are essential minerals, born of the earth itself. Their names are potassium and magnesium. Let us first speak of potassium. If vitamin B1 is the master key, I like to think of potassium as the calm, wise diplomat of our inner world. Its entire existence is dedicated to creating peace and balance. We spoke earlier of the cellular gatekeepers and how they work tirelessly to escort disruptive sodium out of our precious cellular homes. Potassium is the honored guest they welcome inside. Its very presence within the cell creates the gentle, persuasive pressure that makes sodium's departure possible. They are in a constant, graceful dance at the cellular doorway. Where there is an abundance of the calm diplomat, potassium, the aggressive nature of sodium is tamed. Harmony is maintained. But when the diplomat is absent, sodium rushes in, and the cell begins to flood. The great challenge of our time is that our bodies crave a vast amount of this peaceful mineral, nearly 4,700 milligrams, each day for an average person. Many of us, when we hear potassium, our minds immediately go to the banana, and a banana is a beautiful gift of nature. Yet, it contains only about 300 milligrams. To meet your body's needs, you would have to consume over 15 bananas every single day. One can see this is not a practical or wise path. So where does this great diplomat reside? It lives in the places our modern diets have often forgotten. It is drawn from the rich soil up into the deep, dark green leaves of spinach, chard, and kale. It is found in the creamy, nourishing flesh of the avocado. It lives in the earthy humility of mushrooms and the bright sweetness of berries. It calls the vibrant, living foods of the earth its home. Now let us turn to the second pillar, magnesium. If potassium is the calm diplomat, then magnesium is the silent, powerful spark of life itself. It is the grand master of our body's energy. We know that our cellular gatekeepers, the sodium-potassium pumps, require a colossal amount of energy to perform their duties. That energy, in its cellular form, is called ATP. But here is the secret. The body cannot create or use a single molecule of ATP without the presence of magnesium. Magnesium is the flint that strikes the stone to create the spark. It is the match that lights the candle. Without magnesium, there is no fire. Without magnesium, our trillions of cellular pumps have their orders. They have the will to work, but they have no fuel in their tanks. They have no strength. When this inner spark begins to dim, you may feel it in other ways, too. Perhaps as muscle cramps or twitches, a deep fatigue that no amount of sleep can seem to touch, or a mind that feels restless and anxious. This is the body's way of telling you that its very life spark is running low. And where do we find this spark? Again, we must turn to the earth. We find it in the humble pumpkin seed and the radiant sunflower seed. We find it in almonds, and once again, it is abundant in the same dark, leafy greens where its partner, potassium, resides. Do you see the beautiful dance now? The master key, vitamin B1, arrives to manage the fuel and protect the cell. The spark, magnesium, ignites that fuel to give the cellular pumps their power. And the diplomat, potassium, creates the calm, balanced environment that allows the pumps to do their work with grace and efficiency. One cannot fully function without the others. They are a sacred trio, designed to work in perfect harmony. 2. Tend to our bodies. We must tend to them as we would a garden, providing all the elements needed for life. We have now found our key and the strong pillars that support it. In our next conversation, we will discuss the medium in which all this life unfolds, the very water of life itself. Until then, be well. A warm welcome back to you. In our journey together, we have found our master key, the vital vitamin B1. We have learned of the strong pillars that support its work, the essential minerals, potassium and magnesium. We are assembling the foundational elements for healing. But all of this incredible work, this dance of vitamins and minerals, this powering of our cellular gatekeepers, happens within a sacred and essential medium. It happens in the element that makes up more than half of our physical being. Today, we must speak of water. Now, I can feel the question that may be rising in your mind. Kai, you might say, my body is already holding on to too much water. The very problem I have is fluid retention. Why would I want to add more? This is a beautiful and profoundly wise question. It shows you are listening intently to your body's predicament. The secret, however, lies in a simple truth we have forgotten. Not all water is the same. The lonely water that is currently pooled and stagnant in your tissues, and the vibrant water that can truly quench the thirst of your cells, are two very different things indeed. Think of the pure plain water we often drink from a glass or a bottle. It is clean, yes, but in its purity, it is also empty. It is a blank slate. I often think of it as lonely water. When this lonely water enters a body that is already depleted of minerals, it does what lonely things do. It looks for something to connect with. In its journey through your system, it can sometimes latch on to the very minerals your body is so desperate to hold on to: your magnesium, your potassium, and escort them out of your body. In this way, drinking large amounts of plain water, without ensuring you have enough minerals, can sometimes inadvertently make an imbalance even worse. But there is another kind of water, a water that nature has already perfected, a water that is whole, complete, and alive. I call it living water. This is the water that is already contained within living things. It is the water inside this humble cucumber, inside a juicy melon, inside a crisp leaf of lettuce or a sweet berry. This water is so much more than just H2O. It is water that has been patiently filtered by a plant's roots, drawn up into its body, and structured into beautiful, coherent, crystalline patterns by the life force of the plant itself. Most importantly, it arrives in your body already infused with life. It is pre-packaged, if you will, with the very electrolytes, enzymes, and minerals like potassium and magnesium that your body needs to achieve balance. When this living water enters your system, your cells recognize it immediately as a friend. It is exactly what they have been thirsty for, because it brings its own minerals with it. It does not need to rob your body's precious reserves. It is welcomed easily across the cell membrane, delivering profound hydration and nourishment directly to the heart of your cellular homes. It is this living water that quenches the thirst inside the cell, which in turn helps restore the balance and energy needed for the cellular pumps to finally escort the stagnant, lonely water out from between the cells. Think of it like tending to a garden. You can spray a plant's leaves with a hose, and while it may wash off the dust, it does little to quench the plant's deep thirst. The most effective way to water a plant is to nourish its roots, allowing it to draw up the water from the soil. A water already infused with the life and minerals of the earth. To eat your water is to nourish your own roots. So how do we find this living water? We find it everywhere in the plant kingdom, in the profound coolness of a cucumber, in the joyful sweetness of watermelon, cantaloupe, and other melons, in the satisfying crunch of celery, in the tender leaves of lettuce and spinach, in the bright burst of a ripe tomato. Even a simple, warm broth made from simmering vegetables is rich with this structured, life-giving fluid. This is not to say that one should stop drinking pure water entirely, but it is a gentle invitation to shift your focus. Instead of obsessing over the number of glasses you drink, perhaps you can ask, how many water-rich living foods can I invite onto my plate? Today, we are methodically and peacefully restoring our inner ecosystem. We have the key, we have the pillars, we now have the living water to cleanse the river and nourish the cells. But a river, no matter how clean, must also be encouraged to flow. In our final talk on the solution, we will discuss the gentle, yet essential, role of movement in finally sending the stagnant waters on their way. Until then, peace to you. A warm welcome back. We have journeyed so far together. We have given our body the master key of vitamin B1 to unlock its energy. We have provided the strong pillars of potassium and magnesium to support its structure. We have bathed our cells in the profound nourishment of living water. In essence, we have placed the finest, cleanest fuel in the tank and provided all the materials for perfect repair. But a perfectly built car with the best fuel does not go anywhere until someone gently turns the ignition and presses the accelerator. Today, we must speak of this gentle acceleration. We must speak of movement. I know what this word may bring up. When your legs feel heavy and full, when they ache with the weight of this stagnant fluid, the very thought of moving can feel like an impossible task. The body's instinct is often to retreat into stillness, to protect itself from further discomfort. I honor that feeling. But I must share with you the wisdom of nature, which shows us a different path. Look at this pond. In its stillness, leaves and silt gather. The water can lose its clarity, but a flowing river, a stream that is constantly in motion, remains clear, vibrant, and full of life. Our bodies are exactly the same. In this specific case of fluid stagnation, stillness does not lead to healing. It unintentionally invites the waters to become even more stagnant. Now, when I say the word movement, I invite you to release the images that our modern world often attaches to it. I am not speaking of punishing, breathless exercise. I am not asking you to run a marathon or lift heavy weights. I am speaking of something far simpler, far more loving, and perhaps far more profound. I am speaking of mindful movement, the gentle, conscious act of reminding your body how to flow. To understand why this is so critical, you must know that you have not one, but two great rivers flowing within you. The first is your bloodstream, which we have spoken of. Its powerful pump, your heart, works tirelessly. Gentle movement helps the heart do its job better, pushing the blood along. But there is a second, quieter river. This is your lymphatic system. It is your body's purification and drainage network. It is the system responsible for collecting cellular waste and excess fluid like the water pooled in your ankles, carrying it away. But this vital drainage system has a secret. It has no pump of its own. It is completely dependent on one thing to move its fluid along: the gentle contraction and relaxation of your muscles. When you are still, your lymphatic system is also still. The drainage system is closed. But when you move, you become the pump. With every step, every stretch, every simple motion, you are personally and powerfully clearing the stagnant waters from your tissues. Beyond this physical action, mindful movement also circulates your vital life energy, what the ancients called ki. This energy can become just as blocked and stagnant as your physical fluids. Gentle movement is what unsticks this energy, allowing your body's own innate healing intelligence to flow freely into the areas that need it most. So what does this gentle movement look like? It can be as simple as a slow, mindful walk. For 10 minutes a day, just feel your feet making contact with the earth. Feel the muscles in your calves gently contracting. With each step, you can say to yourself, I am the pump. I am creating flow. While you are sitting and reading or watching television, you can practice one of the most effective movements, simply rotating your ankles. Slowly, in a large circle, first one way, then the other. Imagine you are gently stirring the waters at the very bottom of the pond, encouraging them to rejoin the current dot. And perhaps the most peaceful and powerful practice of all is to lie comfortably on the floor and rest your legs up against a wall for 5 to 10 minutes. Here, you are not even using your own energy. You are inviting the great, powerful force of gravity to become your partner in healing, allowing it to effortlessly draw the stagnant fluid from your legs back toward the center of your body. The path to wellness is a partnership. We provide our bodies with the beautiful nutrients and the living water they need. In return, our bodies ask for our participation in helping to circulate these precious gifts. Movement is your prayer, spoken with your body. It is your active, loving participation in your own healing. We have now gathered all the elements of our solution. In our final conversation, we will weave them all together into a simple, cohesive tapestry of daily practice. Peace to you. Welcome, my friends, for the final time on this particular journey. We have walked a long and, I hope, an illuminating path together. We began by learning to quiet ourselves and listen to the body's gentle whisper. We journeyed deep into the cell to meet the tireless gatekeepers. We witnessed how a river of life can become stagnant and sticky, and we followed that river to see the suffering it caused in the faraway villages of our being. And then, with hope in our hearts, we turned a corner. We found the master key, vitamin B1. We fortified our foundation with the strong pillars of potassium and magnesium. We learned to hydrate our very souls with the gift of living water. And finally, we embraced the sacred gift of movement, becoming the pump for our own healing. We have gathered all the individual threads. Today, in our final conversation, we will weave them together into a single, beautiful tapestry of daily life. Today, we speak of the return to harmony. This path to wellness, you see, is not a list of rules to follow. It is not a battle to be won. It is a gentle return to an elegant and interconnected system, a symphony where every note supports the others. It begins not with a food or a vitamin, but with a profound shift in your relationship with yourself. It is the shift from seeing your body as a machine that is broken to honoring it as a wise and sacred friend who is communicating with you. The swelling is not the enemy, it is the messenger. This single change of heart, from resistance to loving, acceptance, is the fertile soil from which all other healing will grow. From this place of kindness, we then begin to lovingly clear the obstacles. We make a conscious, daily choice to reduce the amount of sticky honey we allow into our sacred river. This means becoming mindful of the refined sugars and processed flours that steal our vitality and clog our flow. We see this not as an act of deprivation, but as a profound act of protection. We are choosing a clear, flowing river over a stagnant, murky pond. As we clear the way, we joyfully invite in the deep nourishment our bodies crave. We seek out our master key, vitamin B1, in whole, natural foods that provide energy without creating debt. We build our foundation with the two pillars, potassium and magnesium, seeing them not as individual pills, but as a team of guardians found together in the abundance of dark leafy greens. avocados, nuts, and seeds. We learn to hydrate our very being with the living water found in cucumbers, melons, and broths. Understanding this is the water our cells truly recognize and welcome. And we honor this entire inner ecosystem with the gift of gentle movement. With every mindful walk, with every simple ankle circle, with every quiet moment we spend with our legs up the wall, we are ensuring that these precious gifts reach every corner of our kingdom. We are making it impossible for stagnation to persist. Do you see the beautiful symphony? This is not a rigid regimen, it is a dance. The minerals help the vitamins to work. The living water carries the minerals. The movement circulates the water. The removal of the refined sugar allows all of this to happen in a peaceful, balanced environment. Nothing works in isolation. Everything is connected. Imagine a day that begins not in a rush, but with 5 minutes of quiet listening and gentle stretching. Imagine choosing an avocado for your breakfast, or a large, vibrant salad for your lunch. Imagine reaching for a handful of seeds instead of a sugary pastry. Imagine ending your day with a short, peaceful walk, feeling your muscles gently pumping, clearing the day's stagnation. These are not heroic, difficult acts. They are small, simple, loving choices. But when woven together, day after day, they create a powerful and profound transformation. They create harmony. The journey from swelling and stagnation to lightness and flow is simply the journey back, home to yourself. Your body, in its infinite wisdom, has been whispering to you, not out of malice, but out of a deep and abiding love and a desperate desire to be whole again. Your body has never, ever given up on you. My final invitation is this: please do not give up on it. May you walk this path with patience for yourself, with compassion for your journey, and with a quiet and unshakable peace in your heart. May your inner rivers flow freely, and may you rediscover the lightness of being that is your natural, sacred birthright. Peace be with you, always.